Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom is back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Today I have a very special video because Blossom is diving in the pool of math. Now, as you know, if you've been watching my videos for at least a week, and if you know me, you would know that I am absolutely atrocious at math. I cannot do math. I hate math. But one thing about math that really always has excited me, and that is statistics. I've always enjoyed statistics. In high school, I took advanced placement statistics. Not like that means anything because I've basically forgotten everything about it. And I needed help to make the Excel sheet, which we'll see later. Shout out to Kevin for that. But today we're going to be jumping into the world of statistics because I want to know, as the stats never lie, what are my most used epics. This isn't based off intuition. This isn't based off how many times I play clubs. No. This is going to be straight up math. This is going to be stats. And what I basically did was I took all my maxed epics, all 83 of them. There are 84 cars in here because one car is getting the Novak treatment. That's 1 star, but I still use it a crap ton, so I'm putting it in the list. What I did was I took the total amount of races that I've had in a max epic, and I divided it by the total amount of days, which gives me how many times I use that said epic in a day, on average, basically. So here I've divided and made a tier list. So as you can see on the bottom tier, we have cars that I basically use less than 0.58 times a day. On average, of course, because it's impossible to use a car 0.58 times a day, but on average it is possible, and it goes all the way up to over 4 races. So what I did was I took all my epics and I implemented the same formula. After this I will show you the Excel sheet that Kevin made as well, because it shows you basically everything I need to know about all my epics up to this date, which is the 10th of January 2022. So I'm very excited. I want to learn about my garage. There comes a point in every Top Drives player's career where we kind of stop thinking about what our garage can be and we start thinking about what our garage currently is. You know, there's a lot going on in my garage and I want to know more about it. So let's see if Blossom choices are indeed some of my most used epics, and let's see if there are any surprises or things that we can expect. So starting this off are the epics, and once again all these epics are epics that I own, that I've had, that are fully maxed out, all of them but one. We'll talk about that Peugeot later, but let's talk about my least used maxed epics. So these are epics on average where I use less than 1 time a day. Not even less than 1 time, less than 0.58 times a day. So very, very bad here. And as you can see, a lot of these cars are not very good epics. Once again, I really only max out epics which I think I would use all the time. So when I say not very good epics, I mean not very good of very good epics, if that makes any sense. So over here we have cars like the XC90. Now the XC90, that makes sense. I basically max that for a tri-series. The Viper SRT10, which came as a bit of a surprise that it was that low. One of my Challenger SRT Hellcats. Now I have 3 of them and they're all in different positions, but actually 2 of them, as you can see, made it in this list. Now I have put all these cars in order. So for example, the Mercedes AMG C63 is around like 0.57 on average. And then you have cars like the Spiker C2, which is my absolute worst, which I do believe is 0.21. So very, very, very low. So these are all my lowest used cars. Some surprises over here would be the SVT Cobra, but obviously with the introduction of the Infiniti Emerge E in JPT, the SVT Cobra has kind of just fallen into irrelevance. The Aston V12 Zegato as well. This one is a bit of a surprise that it ended up being so low. I guess they're in a lot of events which called for the V12 because it is very similar to the CC100. So many events where I could use the CC100, I wouldn't use the Zegato. The Zegato is good because if you can't use the CC100, it's basically like a budget version, same handling, low 0 to 60 high top speed, but it just doesn't have the MRA. But moving on now, so let's talk about cars that I use in between 0.59 to 0.99 times a day, and it's going to be starting from the M3 GTS all the way to the Peking to Paris. So the M3 GTS, it's actually very sad to see how far this car has fallen because this is one of my oldest cars in my entire garage. I had the M3 GTS Max when I barely had any epics. So obviously when you barely have any epics, you have to use the ones that you have max. So I used to use the M3 GTS all the time, but once my garage improved, I got a bunch more max epics. The M3 W3 GTS became even more and more irrelevant. And then you have cars like the Volkswagen W12. Now this one's new, and really about the Volkswagen W12, I shared this with my patrons in my Discord server, and a lot of people were surprised. When I say a lot of people, I think literally just Kevin and Cannon, but they were surprised to see the W12 as low as it was. The story of my Volkswagen W12 is it's a great car. I got it for the Peugeot 905B GT challenge. I used it for the challenge, and then there wasn't really many events where I used it again. The main problem with the W12 is it only has 95 handling, so it isn't really my go-to car to use in clubs either because it doesn't handle that well. And I think you would see a little trend with all the handling numbers in the lower end. You know, you have 86, 86, 86, 87, 86. This one's 88, but the Lotus Exige 265e, you will see later, is a very disappointing car, because when I show you the Excel sheet, I'm also going to be showing you all the win percentages that I have on every car. So which car I have, which is my, so you know, you get to see which is my oldest Epic in my garage, which is the Epic with the highest win ratio in my garage, which is the Epic with the most races in my garage, etc, etc. It's very interesting stuff, at least for me. Like I said, I do enjoy my fair bit of statistics. So we move up the ranks now to cars that I use on average 1 to 1.19 times per day. So these are going to be cars like the Audi RS3, the Mercedes CLK DTM, and the Emerge. Now, very interesting stuff here. The Emerge is a lot lower than I expected it to be. Very low RQ, great handling, low 0 to 60. I thought that the Infiniti Emerge would be somewhere in the 1.2 to 1.5 range, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So these are cars that I do use, well, I mean the stats don't lie, these are cars that I use at least a day. I race once a day at least on average. These are cars that, you know, do get some use, that's what I'll say. But now moving on, a tier above is going to be cars that I use between 1.2 to 1.49 times a day. Now these are cars that I do use pretty often now. So we have cars like the Hayabusa and of course the Peugeot 306 Maxi. Now the Peugeot 306 Maxi is the only Epic in this list that isn't fully upgraded. The only reason why I'm putting it in this list is because I use the Peugeot 306 Maxi like it is a maxed Epic. My Peugeot 306 Maxi is 339. All I did was max out the handling because I only have one purpose for my 306, and that is to beat Volkswagen TCRs in clubs. That's it. So since it's capable of doing that at 113, I kind of just leave it as that, and I kind of count it as a max Epic because it kind of gets me the value already. And as you can see, it does get me the value because I use it on average 1.2 to 1.49 times a day. So these are cars that I use pretty often, I would say. JPE, the Hayabusa, the Maxi, the wide body, of course, and of course the Range Rover 5.0 V8. But there are some huge surprises in here, namely the two Subarus, the Subaru WRX and the Subaru Impreza WRX. Now, the main reason why I think those two Subarus are so high up the list is because these were the first JPT Epics I ever got, right? So, you know, since it's the first JPT Epics I ever got, I have to use them kind of at gunpoint because I don't have any better options. And also, there were a lot of events which basically called for these cars, right? There was the hatchback event. So there were a bunch of JPT events. There was the hatchback event for the Ford GTX1 or whatever it's called, which was the whole entire challenge, so I had to use that. And then there was the Subaru WRX, the blue one. You know, there were saloon JPT events, etc, etc, etc. Basically, they're so far up the list because they are my only JPT cars, and I couldn't unpack anything better. I guarantee you, if I unpack better Subarus, these two wouldn't be far up the list. To be fair, I think the hot hatch one would have been somewhere around here anyway because I had to use it in the hot hatch event. Some of the cars that came as a surprise would be the 911 RSR, quite low for what it is, 99 handling, low 0 to 60, very lightweight. I think the main reason about my RSR, why I don't use it as much as I think I do, is because I'm very disappointed and embarrassed with my RSR. My RSR is 323, which is something that someone else told me to do, and I listened, and I should not have listened to him. I don't know why I did that. I maxed my RSR a long time ago, back in like early 2018. Beginner's mistake, and because of that, I don't like to use it because it just reminds me of my failures. But anyway, moving on now, we're talking about cars that I use 1.5 to 1.99 times a day. Now, any car from 1.5 and onwards are cars that I use a lot. These are cars that I basically use well, every day, obviously. I mean, any car that is above 1 is a car that I technically use every day. But these are cars that I've used like today as well while I'm recording. So BMW 740D, it's a very great car because, you know, 4-wheel drive, standard tire, medium, handles pretty well. Then we have cars like the Ford Mustang FR500, you know, that's a Blossom choice. Great handling on that, great MRA. We have the Volkswagen Phaeton. Once again, it's a very useful car to use because 4-wheel drive, medium standard tires. We have the Durango, the Grand Sport, the Donkavort D8 270, the Dodge Viper GTSR Concept. Now, as you can see, I had another GTSR Concept in the 1.1.9 range because I own 2. And obviously, you know, both of them I've gotten at different times, I used at different times. So there is one GTSR that I use over the other. Mustang GT4 is in this 1.5 to 1.99 range as well. Dodge Charger Juice, and of course my Challenger SRT Hellcat. So one interesting thing to note is the 2 Challenger SRT Hellcats you see at the bottom. Those 2 are my 233 versions, the ones that I basically maxed out for silver screen. But this one over here in the 1.5 to 1.99 range is my drag spec 332. This is the OG Challenger. This is my first American Dream Epic, so obviously I've used it a lot. We also have the Campaign Camaro and a Charger Hellcat and the Corvette Z06. So a couple of Blossom choices in here already, ranging from the Durango to the Mustang GT4s to the Z06. Now, moving on now, very, very high. Basically, any car above here is cars that I just use all the time. So 2 to 3 times a day, okay? This is more than 1 time a day, basically. These are cars that I use a lot. And as you can see, 2 to 3 times a day, I'm using cars like the Peugeot 207S 2000, which I've had for a very long time. It won me the McLaren Senna. It won me, well, McLaren Senna on the first time, of course, and couple other prize cars, I believe. It's a very, very good car. Alongside that would be the Cadillac CT6, the Lotus 211 Supercharge, of course the Caterham Superlight, and, you know, Charger SRT Hellcat, Chevrolet Murray. These are very, very useful cars. Some outliers, I would say, would be the Cadillac XT5s and the Porsche 911 Carrera S. Now, why the 2 XT5s and the Carrera S? Why they're so far up the list? The main reason is because these 3 epics, the 2 XT5s and the 911, are very, very old epics. So like I said, you know, these were max epics that I've had for a very long time, since 2017. And obviously back then, when I didn't have a lot of epics, you know, you kind of have to use what you got. And back then, the 911 and the 2 XT5s were among what I got. So I used them a lot back in the day. The XT5 and 911 Carrera S are cars that I don't use anymore, but I used them a lot back in the day because it was all I had. But everything else are cars that I use a lot in the present day. So cars like the Aston Martin CC100, the Ram Rebel TRX, the E-Legend, the Subaru Impreza. This is JPT, which is insane that it's already so far up the list. It isn't even my highest because we're going to talk about the Bluebird in a bit. And then the Land Rover Defender Works. A lot of people were also kind of, you know, confused to why the Land Rover Defender Works was so far up the list. That's mainly because I used it like 300 times for the Bugatti Chiron Sport final. And, you know, it's still a pretty competent car outside of that final anyway, so it does get decent use. But last but not least, let's talk about the final 2 ranks. We have cars that I use, this is elite tier, honestly. These are cars that I use on average 3.1 to 3.9 times a day. So we have cars like, you know, these are cars that are fantastic. They are basically versatile in everything, or they're specialists in one thing. So you have cars like the Audi RS6. It's a specialist, right? And not specialist, it's versatile. You can use it for basically almost anything. It has the MRA, handles okay, 4-wheel drive, high top speed, low 0 to 60, etc, etc. Then you have cars like the BMW M3 CS, handles incredibly well, it's a saloon, low 0 to 60, etc, etc. Then you have the Nissan Bluebird, the Colorado Killer. Then you have the BMW 570 and the GMC Cyclone. These are cars that I use on a daily basis all the freaking time. Even today, I think I've used every single car that you see here 5 times at least. And then last but not least is the highest. These are cars that I use more than 4 times a day. So going from, you know, the least to the most, we start off with the Jaguar I-Pace, which I think has an average of like 4.2, something like that. And then we have the Ford F-150 Raptor, which is also 4.2, one of my oldest cars in my garage. And until today, you know, since I haven't been able to get the new Raptor, this old Raptor has been a staple in my garage. And then we have the Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat. Now this one is my drag spec. So we had a Charger SRT Hellcat that was, you know, ranging in between 2 to 3 times, and we had another one that was ranging between 1.5 to 1.99. Those two Chargers are my 233 versions, but the one on the top is the drag spec, the king, you know, the drag daddy, 332. And then my most used epics in my entire garage are Mitsubishi. So Subaru, you can suck it. These two Mitsubishis are absolutely insane. The Charger, the Raptor, and the I-Pace are all within, I think, 4.2 to 4.6%, 4.2 to 4.6 times a day, but the Mitsubishis are in a league of its own. The Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 9 is, I think, 5.25 times a day. So the only epic I use 5 times a day on average. And then the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 8, the price car, has an average of 7.42, which means on average, I use that Mitsubishi 7 times a day since I owned it, since winning it. Absolutely insane numbers. So, you know, really, you know, this is a way for me to get to know my garage, to see what I really use the most. And I have to say, the top 10, no surprise, right? No surprise. There's so many Blossom choices in here. The I-Pace, the Bluebird, the M3CS, the Charger, and of course, you know, the Ford Raptor used to be Blossom choice until the new Raptor came out, but I don't have that yet. So a lot of really, really good cars. But before we end the video, I want to show you real quick the Excel sheet, because this tells you so much more about my epics. You know, what are the epics that I race the most? Let's just get into it. Here we are, the Excel sheet. Now, once again, I do not know how Excel works, and I barely know how statistics works. It was thanks to Kevin. Kevin made this sheet for me, and it's just, well, he actually made it for himself, but then because he was also comparing, what I like to think of myself is that I'm the idiot with the ideas, and Kevin basically refines everything. So he made this sheet, and it's super useful because it basically makes me learn so much about my garage that I may have not known. So first things first, let's talk about win percentage, okay? So let's go from Z to A. So my highest win percentage epic is the Ford Mustang GT4 at 94%. I have a couple cars above, you know, 90 and above, and most of them are actually Dodge, which makes me happy. So the Charger SRT Hellcat, 90%, Challenger wide body, of course, 90%, my Challenger SRT Hellcat, 90%, SRT Hellcat, 91, Ram Rebel, 91, my Evo prize car, 93, and my Mustang GT4 is at 94. Now, if you're wondering why some cars are highlighted in gold, it's because, well, I'm sure some of you might have noticed, they're Blossom choices. And as you can see, the Blossom choice epics are all very high up the list. I think the lowest one goes to the Z06 at 79% win ratio, and everything else is 80% and above. Now, oh wait, no, we have the Mirai at 74. But yeah, everything else besides those two cars are 80 and above. Some really good cars here. We have the Hellcats, we have the Peugeot 306, the Bluebird, the M3CS, the I-Pace, etc, etc, etc. Now, my lowest win percentage is actually the Subaru. Yep, Subaru WRX at 48%. That thing is a piece of crap. You know, the Sidewinder was a bit of a shock, I would say, 58%. And what else was, oh yeah, the 265. Yeah, the Lotus Elise 265 was a huge disappointment. 67% win ratio only. That is very sad. I was surprised that my Dodge Viper SRT10 had a 68% win ratio, because that's also pretty low. But for the most part, most of the cars that are at the bottom of the list aren't very good. You know, like the Mercedes AMG C63, the XT5, the BMW 335D that used to be an ultra rare, the ZL1 convertible, the SVT Cobra, which used to be good, bless it, but the Emerge E has basically just taken its names. If we do races per day, we can go Z to A. Oh, sorry, now I'll need to scroll all the way down because codes, I don't understand. So yeah, as you can see, it's a landslide, right? So my I-Pace, not 4.2, is 4.1. So I use my I-Pace on average 4.1 times a day. The SVT Raptor, 4.12. My Charger SRT Hellcat, 4.6. The Mitsubishi, 5.25. And the Mitsubishi prize car, 7.42. My lowest is, like I said, I think is the Zegato. Yep, the C12 Zegato. I use it on average 0.2 times a day. My 699 Challenger Hellcat comes in second at 0.25. And the Charger Scat Pack coming in at 0.3. So what else is there to know? Oh, my oldest epic, let's do that. So Z to A, I think. Yeah, there we go. So my oldest ever epic, I mean, surprise, surprise, it's the Campaign Camaro. So my Chevrolet Camaro Z28, I've owned it for 1,562 days. My third oldest epic is the BMW 740D. I've owned that for 1,520 days. Fun fact about the 740D, that is the first ever epic I pulled from a ceramic pack. The BMW 335D, however, that used to be ultra rare, so that's why it's so far up the list. The Lancer Evo, one of my most raced cars, 87% win ratio, almost 8,000 races, owned it for 1,507 days. And my first Blossom choice was actually the Z06, coming in at 1,110 days, followed by the Charger Hellcat at 970 days. And my, newest maxed epic is my W12 Roadster, which is only 65 days old, and I use it on average 0.7 times a day. So I don't know if this interests you guys, but this genuinely interests me. Like, I can look at these stats all freaking day just to learn about my garage. What else is there? Win ratio. I think I've showed you win ratio. Have I showed you races? Maybe I haven't showed you races. So let's do races. So yeah, once again, the W12 Roadster is my least race, but let's go from big to small. So my most raced epic is indeed the Prize Evo, which, yeah, I mean, oh sorry, not even the Prize Evo. It's actually my Lancer Evo 9. My second most raced epic is my Prize Evo, but it's very, very close. 7,912 to 7,848. I swear, it doesn't really come close. After these two Mitsubishis, it doesn't come close. It's like 5,970, 5,679. Then we have my Hellcat coming in at 4,522, and my M3CS at 3,270. So really, these two Mitsubishis are just taking names out here with the highest races per day ratios as well. What is my least raced? It's the Volkswagen. Yeah, the Volkswagen W12 Roadster, only 50 times, 50 races, and the Ford Mustang SVT Cobra coming in 93. But basically, all my max epics besides two, I have raced over 100 times, starting from the Emerge, which is a very young car. I've only owned it for 98 days, and I've only raced it 102 times, and yeah, everything else is basically 100 or more. So how many? I have 36 epics that I've raced over 1,000 times, which is pretty crazy. The Caterham JPE is at 994 races. If I did compete in the Rimac final, that would have been over 1,000, easy. But yeah, it's just so nice to really learn about my epics. Once again, shout out to Kevin for making this, because I don't know how to do Excel as well as he does. I mean, that guy is crazy. So once again, let's go sort from 65. Yeah, so that's going to be it, guys. That is my epics. I think there's no surprise that, my most used epics are basically cars like the I-Pace and the Charger and, all that good stuff. But anyway, hope you guys have a great day. I hope you found this video really exciting, because I found it really exciting to make, and I have a lot of fun with these stats. I might do the same for legendaries as well, who knows. But anyway, hope you guys have a great day. I'm gonna stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. Hold tight all night, cruise to Jacksonville
Atlantic.
Blonde hair, don't care, look like Leslie Brooks. Pin up girls everywhere with the drop dead look. Swing it side to side as we slow dance to the night, when I'll hold your perfect hand and take you out.